Welcome to Perspectives El Paso. I'm Professor Leon Blevins, Professor of Government at El Paso Community College. As you've just noticed, we've entered a very interesting location here in El Paso. And for today's program, we have a very interesting person to talk with. I want to show you my tie. Since we're in an art museum, I decided to wear an artsy tie. This tie was drawn by a 12-year-old girl named Sarah for a fundraiser for Save the Children. And she calls it Dads. It shows the different professional clothing that different fathers wear. So I have a special guest, and you're going to be surprised at what he's wearing today. This is Hal Marcus, well-known artist in El Paso, Leon? Texas.
Thank you for having me here.
I love your outfit.
It's paisley.
Paisley.
Purple paisley.
Okay.
I'm a flower child from the 60s.
Oh, well, I can identify with that. You were born when?
1951.
Oh, you're just a child. I was born in 1937.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
But we've had a great time. And I've had you on my show before.
Yes, it's been about 4 years.
4 years ago this week, I believe.
Wow.
I checked my records
Incredible.
before I came to the program. And we're not going to just replay that kind of story because we are now in a unique setting, the El Paso Museum of Art, downtown El Paso. And you have a major exhibition here. And I've seen some of your exhibitions before, but never here.
That's right.
Tell us about this.
This is my first solo exhibit at the El Paso Museum of Art. I have 50 works of art ranging 45 years worth of work. I have work here from 1970 up until present. I have sculptures, I have drawings, I have prints, I have oils, I have acrylics. So it's kind of a little retrospective, I guess you'd call it. Right on the outside of the gift shop on the first floor of the El Paso Museum of Art is quite an honor to be here. It's a 50-year overnight success.
But you had to work at it a bit and spend some money to reach this.
I had to work my butt off. I did.
Tell me about, you used to work at this museum in the old location at Brown in Montana.
Right. When I was about 20 years old, I got a job at the El Paso Museum of Art, and I was an art teacher. Prior to that, I had taken classes as a teenager. And then about 10 years ago, I was selected to be on the advisory board of the Museum of Art. And then I became chairman of the advisory board. And then I was, they used me as an advisor to some of the exhibits on El Paso art, especially early El Paso art, like Manuel Acosta, and some of the early books that they published. And about a year and a half ago, I was notified that I would be having this exhibit in conjunction with the Marc Chagall that they're bringing in.
Oh, how wonderful, because some of your paintings reflect some influence of Marc Chagall.
Right, I was greatly influenced as a young man by the work by the great painter Marc Chagall.
Okay, we need to tell the audience, the viewing audience. The opening of this exhibit also involves the presentation of a book that you have just
There's
finished.
actually two things that are recently published. There's this one here called Hal Marcus Art and Times. It's a 250-page book. It has 515 images, and it was written by Monica Gomez, and it's all in full color. It's a delightful book, and there's a lot of stories in here that makes for good reading. The other publication that the museum put out is a catalog here, and it's a catalog of the 40 works of art that are in the exhibit, and this is available at the Museum of Art. Both of these are available at the Museum of Art, and this one's available at the museum and also at the Hal Marcus Gallery.
So we want to urge all of you out there in TV land to get down here and see this exhibit before it is taken down. It ends when?
It ends January 24th.
So we still have quite a bit of time that
2016,
people can get down here.
yes.
And these are in the gift shop here, and you have some,
in the
of
gift
course,
shop.
that you're
We also
bringing.
have cards and prints and memorabilia from this exhibit in the gift shop. So it's a real opportunity for El Paso to come on down. The exhibit is free, and I think they're open every day of the week except for Mondays.
Okay, good. I want to start with you and your family and the art that you've done.
Right.
I've seen your self-portrait, and I've seen your magic bus that shows you driving the family. So for this first half, let's talk about family and friends, and we'll talk about El Paso and this area in the second part of the program. I'm going to move over here a little bit so that our camera can focus in on the magic bus.
The painting behind me is called the Magic Bus, and you know, Leon, I was a flower child, I mentioned that, but I was actually in San Francisco in the Summer of Love, 1968. And there was a band called The Who, and they came out with a song called The Magic Bus.
Okay.
But this is me and my family. I'm driving the van there, and those are my daughters dancing and their band, and my son is up on top of the bus playing the the bongos, and my wife is in the back of my van with our 2 dogs, my wife Patricia Medici. So that's just sort of like there's a rainbow in the sky, there's hula hoops, people playing instrument, and my friend Gene Keller is playing the big cello there on the hood. So that's my family and my extended family with the Magic Bus.
Okay.
I have several pieces in this exhibit. I have one called Sunset Heights, which is me and my wife sitting on a swinging above where I live, in Sunset Heights.
Okay.
I have an old Victorian home that I've lived in since the 70s. And then there's another.
Hey, before we go past that,
Yeah.
give us the address of your location
Okay,
there.
well, my gallery is at 1308 North Oregon, and directly across the street at 1319 is my 100-year-old Victorian home where I have my studio, and we have a museum there, really, because we have the work by 100 local artists in my private collection. So I've been born and raised here in El Paso, and we've been collecting art and supporting local artists. We've represented probably 500 local artists since we opened up 20 years ago.
Okay, give us your telephone number if you wish, and your website.
Well, yeah, the telephone number's 915-533-9090, and it's halmarcus.com.
Well, there you have it. So now you can clue in. Tell us a little bit about your self-portrait. It's in this gallery. We want to be sure that we show the audience that.
Right.
Your self-portrait, and then you have some pictures of your daughters.
Right, right.
Okay, tell us about those.
Well, the 2 self-portraits that I have here, one is from the 90s, and it's from my dark period. It was when I was going through my divorce, and I painted all my canvases black. There's that portrait, and it's called Tree Man. The other one is one I did back in about 1995, and it's kind of a cubistic, fauvistic, colorful painting of myself. It's about 14 inches by 14 inches, and those are the 2 self-portraits that are in the catalog in the book and on display here today.
Okay.
The other painting that's become really popular since I've had this exhibit is called Hija del Sol, and there's a billboard of that painting outside facing the Plaza Theater that we'll go take a look at on the way out. And it's become a pretty popular painting because it was on the front cover of the invitations, and it's just a large, people think it's a Madonna, but it's my daughter Adelaide, who's an artist in her own right and a performer, and so that painting is also in the exhibit, inspired by my children.
Okay. Any other of the paintings out through here that you have woven your family into?
Well, yes, we have one called the Wedding Portrait, and that's kind of humorous because there's a yin-yang. The groom is upside down and the bride is right side up, and it's what I use for my wedding invitation. So it's called the Wedding Portrait, and there's a yin-yang quality to that. It's quite humorous. Practically all the paintings here are somehow inspired by my family.
Okay.
Even though most of them are inspired by the city of El Paso and Juarez.
Okay, now how do you classify Marc Chagall's paintings in your paintings? Obviously, and they're not realism, they're not exactly surrealistic. How do you classify this?
Well, I think of my work as folk art, with a bent towards modernism. The relation to Marc Chagall is that he was Jewish, in shock because, like we said, I worked here, I've been on the advisory board, but bringing the artwork up to a higher standard into the El Paso Museum of Art, which is one of the most beautiful museums in the nation. It really has a very good reputation. It elevates our work to a higher level, and being that I've been a part of the community for so long, and now I have this solo exhibit, I'm in shock. I mean, it's just quite an honor, and I've been bringing groups through. I've been doing docent training, and now with this video on Perspectives El Paso, it's just puts myself in a bigger light. Most people know me from my Mercado Juarez,
Right.
And some of those paintings that I've done, but they have no idea that I did the sculpture. They have no idea of the paintings I did in the 70s. I have sculptures here, Leon, that I did when I was 19 years old. Paintings that I painted when I was 19 years old.
Good. So we can see the progress
Right.
that you have made over the years.
The sculptures, yeah, the paintings. There's one called The Piano Man, which we'll show,
Okay.
during the filming here. And I did it when I was 19 years old, and I hadn't seen it for 45 years. I borrowed it. Many of the pieces in this exhibit were borrowed from patrons who bought the paintings 40 years ago. So for them to all come together is very surreal.
Well, I notice you have a loop here. For people that come, they can
Right.
see this loop that runs for several minutes. And I asked you, and others have asked you, how you define art. I don't think I'll replay that one. But I'm going to ask you this question. Do you think of yourself as somewhat a philosopher, using your art to help people to think about life and how they feel about themselves and others?
Well, that's a good question. You know, there is a philosophy behind it all. It's basically, you know, love and beauty. You know, everything that's going on in the world today, sometimes you forget about the wonder of life. And what I try to do with my colors and with my themes is to celebrate where I am, the El Paso border region, but also that the answer to all the problems in the world is basically love and beauty and art. And so I am a philosopher in that respect.
Okay, today there are students walking around behind us over here.
Right.
Some of them are doing art appreciation reports.
Right.
Before we leave this first segment, what would you tell a student about doing art?
Well, I mean, if they are an aspiring artist, I would tell them go to every single museum that you can. I would tell them to work every day because you have to be disciplined. There's no such thing as an overnight success. And just, you know, don't believe everything your teachers and your parents say, because I was, my parents tried to get me to change my mind. They said, you will starve to death if you're an artist. So they did everything they could to sway me against being an artist because the odds are terrible. But, you know, I believe, and I would tell them to believe in their dream.
Oh, very good. Well, that's about half of the program, so it's going too fast.
Oh, it's okay. We got a lot of bases to
So we're going to take a break right here, and we'll be back in just a minute.